Is it possible for you to buy your first cash flowing income property with absolutely none of your own money and none of your own credit? Well, I'm here to share with you exactly how to do this step by step. So get yourself a pen and a pad of paper because I have a lot of stuff to bring to you in a short period of time. So buckle up your seatbelts because here we go. So you're probably wondering, well, Monica, I've always wanted to get involved in cash flowing real estate deals. It's just that I don't have any money or I don't have any credit to get started, especially since you're the queen of apartment building cash flow real estate. It's definitely next to impossible, if not impossible, for me to raise the down payment money for those kinds of transactions. And you're right, it is. And before we get into the nitty gritty on how all of this is going to be possible for you, let's clear the air on something that a lot of people don't know of right now. And that is there's just no money with typical real estate rentals anymore. So this includes Airbnb, which is off the table, so don't even think about Airbnb right now. We're also talking about traditional rentals, and traditional rentals would mean that basically you would buy a house and rent it out to Joe Blow and Sally Housewife and get rental income, and there's just no way to make money with that anymore because by the time you're covering your mortgage, your taxes, and your insurance every month, you're lucky to break even. And then even if you are breaking even on that property with the long-term play of you getting appreciation from that property, what happens if the hot water heater goes out, or you need to change out the roof, or maybe you need to get electrical or plumbing work done? The very moment anything goes wrong with the property, which every single property I've ever owned had something go wrong with it, guess what? You have to come out of pocket to pay that. And many times you're going to have to put that on your credit card, and it's going to take you months, if not years, to pay that off. And that's just a quick fix it for now. What happens in 3 to 6 months from now when something else goes wrong and something else goes wrong? So there's just simply no money to be made with traditional rentals. Same with apartment building rentals. You cannot buy an apartment building in most areas of the country unless, of course, you want to spend a lot of money and time rehabbing something that you're going to get for dirt cheap. Otherwise, if you're trying to buy something that's, say, a plex or a 24-unit apartment building, and you're trying to rent out each unit to make a profit, you're going to run up to against the same exact issues where you're not going to be able to make enough money every single month to cover your mortgage, taxes, and insurance, plus all your common area costs, such as landscaping and even common area utilities like lighting, for example, or if you're in the northern climates, snow removal, all these different extra expenses, and it just adds up, and you just simply cannot make it anymore. Plus, case in point, think in terms of how much money you're going to have to put down on an apartment building. Many times you're going to have to put down between 20 and 35% depending on the seasoned occupancy. And it's just not worth it. I mean, you're looking at an apartment building, say for, $5 million. Well, 20% is $1 million. That's a lot of money to have to raise that has to be cash, which means skin in the game. Now, of course, we do have one particular exclusive lender that we work with. He's actually a broker, and he works with a direct lender that can get you up to 100% LTV on any deal that's over $1 million. I can put more information about that in the description box below if you're interested, but again, your deal has to be over $1 million, and the thing is, you do have to raise 2% for the bond fund raise, which means that you have to come up with $20,000 per $1 million you want to borrow. So if you want to borrow $5 million, you're going to have to come up with $100,000, which is very easy to do with unsecured business credit, which I talk a lot about in my other videos. So if you haven't subscribed yet, definitely do that, and definitely check out my other videos on how to build business credit and how to get unsecured business credit, because you could utilize that money to be able to get that 2% bond fundraise if you need to for the purposes of buying, any kind of cash flowing business or any kind of cash flowing apartment building or other asset that's $1 million or more. Again, it has to be $1 million for you to be able to use the bond funding program. But with all of that aside, you're probably thinking, okay, well, you just talked about how traditional rentals don't work. You can't make any money with those. So why are we even having this conversation about real estate investing? Well, because of one key factor that you probably have never heard of and you probably have never thought of, and that is something that we call local Section 8 or transitional community housing. Now, you probably heard of federal Section 8. This is not federal Section 8. Federal Section 8 is just simply market rent. You're getting guaranteed income from the federal government wired into your bank account in the beginning of every single month. for whatever tenants you have, and it could be a partial voucher that you get or a full voucher for some of the tenants. But the bottom line is this: you're only getting market rent. Remember what we just talked about. You cannot make money with traditional rentals or with market rent anymore. There's just no money in that. However, with something called transitional community or local Section 8 housing, this is where the money's at, because let me explain to you how this works. So say, for example, you get yourself a 4-bedroom, 2-bath house, right? The cool thing about transitional community housing is that you can connect with a local government agency or organization. Typically they handle post-rehabilitation drug and alcohol addicts. So for example, if an addict goes through a program for anywhere from 30 days to several months and they get out, they don't have housing in most cases because many of them burn their bridges with their family members and their friends, and they don't even have a couch to sleep on. So they need help from the government to be able to secure housing for usually about a year or less. Sometimes it's a little more, but usually it's up to a year, where they can get transitional community housing, or it's basically like a 3/4 house, for example. Not a halfway house, but like a 3/4 house. It's like that last step before they can get out on their own and find their own secured housing that they can stay in by themselves, right? So transitional community housing pays a lot of money, and the cool thing is you could put about 2 people per bedroom. So if you have an 8 or a 4-bedroom house, you can put 8 people in there. And if you have a very large master bedroom, you can put up to 3 people in the master bedroom. So you could put maybe 9 people in your 4-bedroom, 2-bath house. Now, of course, for all intents and purposes, like for this conversation, we're going to assume that you're only going to be able to get 8 people into your 4-bedroom house, which is 2 people per bedroom. And the cool thing is, many of these transitional community local Section 8 organizations will pay anywhere from $800 to $1,200 per month per person in your house. So on average, that's $1,000 per month per person. So for 8 people in your house, that's $8,000 in gross revenues. And of course, you have to take money off for your monthly mortgage payment and your taxes and insurance and utilities. However, after everything is said and done, you're making at least $4,000 a month. That's at least half of that, okay? And so that's a lot of money, and it's much more money than you'll ever dream of making with a transitional, with a traditional rental, like an apartment building unit, like a regular rental to average Joe Blow, Sally housewife family, right? So that's the way you need to be thinking. Now you're probably thinking, okay, well, how do I connect with these government agencies? It seems like it might be a lot of red tape. I don't know if I want to do it that way. And that's cool if you don't want to do it that way, because there's an alternative way that you can do it. It's called shared housing. So you might have seen shared housing on Facebook or Craigslist, or there's websites like roomies.com, for example, that offer shared housing, like roommates. And so the cool thing about roommates is that if you have a 4-bedroom, 2-bath house, well, you're probably not going to be putting 2 people per bedroom. You're going to be putting 1 person per bedroom. So you're going to be looking at maybe 4 people in a 4-bedroom house. However, you're going to be still making a lot more money than if you were trying to, again, rent your unit or your house to Sally housewife and Joe Blow, right? As just a family. You're going to be making a lot more money with roommates. So you might be getting $1,000 a room on the low side, depending on where you are in the country. Every area of the country is going to be different in which you can command for monthly rent on that unit. In some areas of the country where it's really ridiculously expensive, like Washington, D.C., or certain parts of Southern California, or, New York, I mean, you're going to be looking at way more than $1,000 per person per room in those areas. So it does depend on where you are, and you're going to have to do research on those websites like roomies.com, like Craigslist, like Facebook, to find out what shared housing is going for in your area. So maybe you're not getting obviously $8,000 gross like you would with a transitional community housing deal, but with roommates, you're still making probably double what you'd be looking at if you were renting out to Sally housewife and Joe Blow, right? So $4,000, you're still probably in the red at least $500 to $1,000 per month, depending on all of your expenses. So typically when you have an $8,000 gross revenue, you're taking off about $3,000, sometimes a little more, to be able to pay all your expenses, your mortgage, your utilities, etc. So that leaves you on average usually between $45,000 and $5,000 per month in your pocket when you're dealing with traditional transitional community housing. Now again, all this depends on where you're located, right? The cheaper you can get the house, the better. It does not help you or serve you in any way to be working in areas that are ridiculously expensive, like Southern California, like New York, New York. You might as well go into a different area that's a little bit cheaper, because many times these government agencies and organizations, they don't pay any more based on, the difference between being in New York, New York, or certain other areas in the surrounding area. So you might as well be in a surrounding area, like maybe someplace in New Jersey, for example, because you're going to probably get paid pretty close to the same rate as you would in New York, but yet your house would be cheaper. See what I mean? So think in terms of that. Now, it's going to be in an area that you're located in, because you're going to have to manage your operation. So, for example, if you live in Ohio, you're not going to want to do this in Florida unless you have boots on the ground or people in Florida that are willing to help you with this process, or you plan on moving to Florida and you plan on building your empire there in the state of Florida. Otherwise, you're going to have to do it in your local area to be able to be successful doing this. So you're probably thinking, well, Monica, how do I get started? This sounds great. And you did mention something about me not having to have money. Well, like I mentioned before, you could start using unsecured business credit to get you the down payments for these houses. But even a step better than that, you can do something called sub 2 or subject to, meaning that you're essentially taking over the pre-existing mortgage of the current owner of the property, and you can literally take over their payments and typically get a much lower rate, a much lower mortgage rate than you would ever be able to dream of getting right now. So for example, right now you're probably looking at 7-8+% and a mortgage rate, a mortgage interest rate. However, if you do a takeover of somebody else's mortgage, they might have gotten a rate at 4 or 5%. And so if you take over their mortgage, you're getting a much lower rate, a much lower interest rate. So I talk all about this in a training. It's like a 2-day training, very simple, very quick, very easy to get through. I also have a free training that you could take a look at. All that stuff is down below in the description box so that you can get a handle of exactly how this whole process works and how you can make a ton of money with transitional community housing, or in the very least, shared housing, where you're pocketing between $500 and $1,000 cash profits in your pocket every single month. Listen, real estate's one of these things that builds more wealth than any other kind of business out there. In fact, if you looked at the Fortune 500 list, or the Forbes 500 list of all of the millionaires, multimillionaires, and pretty much all billionaires, you'd notice that the vast majority of them have real estate holdings. Now, not all of them got rich in real estate, but 95+% of them are retaining their wealth in real estate. And so that's proof in the pudding that real estate is a very legit enterprise that will continue to make millions, if not billions of dollars in the months, years, and decades to come. It's not one of these things that's ever going to disappear unless we, of course, as a people in humanity disappear, in which case we're not going to be worried about anything, real estate or otherwise, at that point. So as long as we all need places to live and places to sleep, real estate is always going to be high in demand. And if you've always been trying to crack that real estate cash flow code, the way to do it is to get involved in transitional community housing, or in the very least shared or roommate housing, because that's where the trend is. Most millennials and Generation Z do not have the money to be able to live out on their own, but they don't want to live with their parents forever. So this is another motivating factor for you to get involved in maybe even the roommate business or the shared housing business, because that will also continue to explode and be in high demand, because a lot of these younger people just simply cannot afford to live out on their own. And yet, again, they don't want to live in mommy's basement forever, right? So that is a huge trend that you can jump on the bandwagon that's in the early phases, as if you can get in on something that's ground level. And even better, you could take over some of these existing mortgages in the subject to realm, where you can actually get in with very little money for these deals. And usually it's just enough to be able to cover the real estate agent's commission, and that's it. And you're able to secure the deal. And I talk all about how to do this. You can find more information down below on exactly how subject to works. But it's an excellent way to get in, because now we are in pretty much a buyer's market. Sellers everywhere are just trying to sell. Most areas of the country that are not able to. I live in Florida. I see listings everywhere. I see the same 3 houses that have been for sale for like the last, I want to say the last year and a half almost, on an adjacent block from where I live. And on top of those original 3 houses that were there a year and a half ago, there's now triple the amount of inventory on top of that. There's like 10 or 12 houses just on one block that are for sale, and it's like all these for sale signs are coming up but nothing's selling. And so a lot of these homeowners, they just simply want to get out. They want to get away from the high insurance. They want to just get away from the state of Florida. Many of them are seniors and they just can't afford the cost of living anymore, so they're going to move someplace else, probably where their kids live, maybe on the East Coast or wherever. And they're trying to liquidate their properties and they just can't because there's no buyers. So you can literally come into a market like this and you can do subject to left and right, and you can literally pick up pennies on the dollar properties to where all you're essentially doing is taking over all the payments, which are going to be ridiculously low and way lower than you can ever hope to get if you're just coming into this brand new trying to pay whatever the current interest rates are on mortgages, which is going to be way higher than what 90% of these houses were purchased at even just a few years ago. So that is one way to definitely get involved in this business with pretty much no money, and the money that you do need is 100% borrowed with your unsecured business credit. So you can check out all my other business credit videos that I've done. You can definitely subscribe to find other videos that are going to come up in reference to getting involved in cash flowing real estate. I'm going to be talking a lot about subject to and other cash flowing real estate strategies, tips, and secrets. So you definitely want to subscribe and give me the thumbs up as well, because that of course helps me out a lot. So also, if you don't have good credit, you don't have good personal credit, where you're like, Monica, it's great sounding that I can get some unsecured business credit, but don't you have to have a high mid FICO score to get business credit? And the answer is yes, you do. So I have a free credit book that you can get. It's called Credit Millionaire. You can get it down below in the description box. It's 100% free. You download it instantly. It'll not only share with you tips and strategies and my unorthodox little known secrets on fixing your credit as quickly as possible, but also how to get started in jump-starting your business credit building as well, because you're going to need that component to be able to make this whole no cash, no credit real estate endeavor work properly, of course. All right, so get on cracking to getting that download, that free download, which you can get down below in the description box. It's my Credit Millionaire book. And if you have any ideas on additional videos that you'd want me to cover, like if you have any questions about any kind of real estate or business credit that you want to talk about and you want me to do a video about, then by all means go ahead and pop that question down into the comment boxes below. This is Monica Main signing off, and I will see you in the next video.